You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And away we go for the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. I think it's a big day. Nick Alberga Jay Rosehill. How are you, Rosie?
Is it a big day today? It's game day. I know that much.
Yeah, it's a massive day because the Maple Leafs are playing the Boston Bruins today. How are you, buddy?
I'm happening. It's big dump of snow. She's wintertime.
Oh, yeah? A lot
yeah.
of snow today?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of snow. But looking forward to this game against Beantown. A little bit of redemption, maybe, possibly, and also might be down a man.
Never a dull day in Leafs Nation. If you're just finding out, our apologies, but Austin Matthews will not play tonight. They're calling it an upper body injury day to day. But I think just watching his game, we all just knew something was up. Like, we hate doing that "What's up with Austin Matthews" segment, but more times than not, when he doesn't look right, something is not right. And clearly we're finding that out here.
Yeah, not something you like to hear. Everything's so cryptic these days. It's just like, what's the point? Like they won't tell you anything. Before, it's like, oh, he tore something in his wrist and he's been battling it for this long and we thought it was good, but it's not. So we're going to go get this done. I don't know, maybe that was just internal, but it seems like you just have no information whatsoever and these things pop up out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, people are kind of wondering why he's off to a bit of a slow start and why he's not as dynamic as he was. And just looking at him, you're kind of like, he just doesn't really seem to, like, something might be a little bit off with him. And you give him the benefit of the doubt because he is who he is. But lo and behold, here he is with, an injury. He finished the last game he played. Maybe he hurt in practice. I think that's fairly unlikely. But something's going on with his upper body. I just gravitate right towards his hands, wrists, that kind of thing. Has that not bothered him in the past, I think?
Yeah, it's exactly it. And if you remember and recall back to training camp, he missed some time as well with an undisclosed injury. But automatically, the speculation is there that it's wrist related. But I think watching the game, like the skating's been there. It's been, and again, we've conditioned ourselves because this guy seems to score in every shot he takes. He's just a bit off with his shot. So that's why people are speculating it's something wrist related.
Yeah, his shooting percentage is kind of down. You just look at the chances that he has, just doesn't put him away. And I don't know, maybe it's not fair. It's not fair to compare every shift and every chance he gets to last year. Because I mean, he was on the half wall, just like spinning and ripping them on the ice, and they were going in. Whether that's just his pure talent and understanding of how to score goals and where to put it when, or if there's a bit of puck luck going on there, but you don't get puck luck 69 times in a row. It's something going on. And I don't know, if you just like go break your arm and it's like, cast it 6 weeks, then you're back. I'd rather have that than this little lingering mystery thing that's going on with him. And I just hope it's not something that that's going to take him out for a long thing that they don't really know how to nail down and rehab and treat and get healthy. It seems like he's got some stuff that's lingering.
I just hate that it always sort of comes out of nowhere. Like, this hasn't even been a conversation all of a sudden sprung
Agreed.
upon us on game day. This guy's not playing. Why is it always the same song and dance?
Yeah, I know. It is frustrating. Like, I don't know if it's, again, I don't follow other teams as closely as I follow the Leafs, but they are definitely famous for just like, boom, this wild news out of absolutely nowhere. No bigger example of it than last year's playoffs, where boom, we don't have Nylander out of the blue. Boom, we don't have Matthews out of the blue. Boom, we don't have Joseph Wall out of, like, what the hell is with that? I don't think other teams deal with that. And if they're more secretive or if they just have more tough luck, I'm not sure. But yeah, this stuff just comes out of the left field and it gets plunked on your lap at 9 o'clock in the morning. And he is injured, and day to day, that means nothing to me. They'll start with day to day every single time, regardless. So I don't know. I'm hoping that it's not something major, and I'm hoping it's something they can address and fix.
Rosie, keep the guy out till game one of the playoffs for all I care. I just want Austin Matthews right. I hope this is not the beginning of just a long, long season. I really don't. And the game's been a bit off. There's been speculation. He's got 5 goals, in 13 games so far this season. Just get him right. If it means sitting him out for an extended period of time, I got no problem with that. You know why, Rosie? Because all time the Leafs win without Austin Matthews in the lineup. It makes no sense. I did some digging. 35, 19, and 2 all time without Austin Matthews. Can you explain that, please?
No, I remember talking about it last time he was out and they went on a bit of a tear. It makes no sense. Makes no sense. He's not a defensive liability, and he is an offensive juggernaut. So it's like, I just think that's rolling the dice and it lands on sixes 3 times in a row. It's just an anomaly in my head, because nothing about it makes sense, except for the fact that he is such a presence that maybe everyone really buckles down and has extra focus and doesn't leave the brunt of the burden on Austin Matthews. And that could maybe explain it. But if that's the case, then I got bigger issues with this team as well. If they're able to pull it up that hard without their guy and then just leave it on him when he's available, that's a tough sign too.
It is, and I guess that's a silver lining of a frustrating situation to be without the top shooter in the world and Austin Matthews and your captain is the fact that this team seems to elevate without this guy in the lineup. Hell, for any star player that they miss, they always seem to win without them. It makes absolutely no sense. But the numbers definitely against the Maple Leafs heading into this matchup against the Boston Bruins. So we're going to tee that up. But I want to get your thoughts as well on a trade the Leafs made last week involving Timothy Liljegren now at San Jose, but Matt Benning. The guy they picked up in that deal doesn't sound like he's going to be a Maple Leaf for long. According to Elliot Friedman, the Leafs are shopping him. They're looking for a new destination. I just wonder how this whole thing plays out here.
I know I'm not going to act like I know very much about Matt Benning or that I've watched him play and know the intricacies of his career and his abilities out there, but he seems like the type of piece that would be in that position, right? You get him out of nowhere just to take them off of San Jose's hands, and now you're trying to work him into some other deal that may include who, I don't know. We got to wait and see, but I do know that to get deals done in this day and age is difficult, and it obviously often takes a lot of different moving parts. And I can imagine he's kind of a guy that would need to be thrown in as a sweetener type of thing to get a deal over the finish line. So I don't have an opinion on it. I understand, and I'm not surprised, but I'm just waiting to see if an announcement is made, and I hope it shores up a few of those different depth positions that we've been talking about on the Maple Leafs roster.
It really doesn't feel like Matt Benning is going to play a game as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going to be the answer to a trivia question in 15 years from now because, call it what you want, but it seems very stubborn in the ways of Craig Berube. And I like it. I mean, Connor Timmins has earned this position to be in this lineup. Yanni Hakanpää, his Leafs debut, you would have to think he's closing in on that. And again, it's similar to Liljegren. Doesn't seem like there's a fit for Matt Benning. But he could always wonder and humanize the situation coming, cross-continent pretty much from San Jose to Toronto, just practicing with these guys, knowing you're not going to be with this team must be so bizarre. Yeah,
it's got to be a whirlwind for him. And, it's just one of those things. As a professional hockey player, nobody, when they look at it from their TV at home, nobody takes account those types of things. Being on the waiver wire, getting traded, getting called up. Your American League team could be on the West Coast. Your parent team could be on the East Coast. You almost made it out of training camp. They don't tell you to get an apartment in the American League, so you're just sitting in a hotel for months and months on end. Your family wants to come visit. You have a kid. Like, there's stuff that's going on that's insane with these guys personally. And here's a situation with Matt Benning where got involved in a deal, gets tapped on the shoulder. Here's that news, packs his stuff, goes to Toronto. Hey, stay tight, hold tight, be patient. His agent's calling around. He's getting little tidbits information from this and that, calling him once a day. Hey, this is going to be a patience game. This might take a couple weeks, but stay ready, stay in the gym, stay positive. All that crap is what's going on in Matt Benning's life right now. It's not exactly fun, but it's part of the business and it's part of the world that he lives in. And I imagine that he is just kind of, soaking up being in Toronto for a little while, practicing with the boys, not a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He probably knows he's not getting thrown in a game unless there's some big injury issues or something like that. So he's in limbo right now, and that's just part of the business that people don't see that happens. And yeah, it's not fun, but a big part of the national hockey or of professional hockey is being mentally tough, staying, the course, being patient, keeping your emotions in check, being a good character guy, all those things. You don't make it to that level unless you got a lot of that going on.
Take advantage of the sightseeing if you're Matt Benning right now, because it seems like you'll have a new destination yet again coming up in the next couple of weeks. Always great to get your perspective, you having played in the National Hockey League. Speaking of perspective, Pierre McGuire is going to drop by again today.
I know. I think it was the summer last time we had him on, and I've got fond memories of Pierre, man. He made a statement with the NHL, with his personality, with his takes. And I'm telling you, there's a lot. The hockey world's very small, as many people as there are in it, a lot of good people. Pierre's one of the guys that genuinely, like, and I mean genuinely cares about the people that he's around. And he is an encyclopedia. He knows, like, when I would see him at the rink, I'd be like, "Hey Pierre, how you doing? Jay, how are you? How's everything back in Olds? Don't your parents run like an auction business and stuff? And oh, the Grizzlies." And I'm like, "Dude, you act like you're my next door neighbor and you've been following me forever. And there's 600 guys in this league and I'm at the bottom of it. Like, it's crazy." And you always felt like he really had a genuine heart. And it's always good to have him on the pod when he would get his takes on the Maple Leafs here.
Yep, looking forward to Pierre's thoughts on this 6-5-2 start for the Maple Leafs. And of course, Austin Matthews not playing tonight against the Boston Bruins. Make sure to check out tonight's edition as well of the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips.
And
Jay Rosehill tonight, man. Here we go.
no,
we get you
Austin,
an election night
against the Bruins. Little bit of a slide going. Oh God, here
election
we go.
night.
Election night. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how high emotions are tonight after this one, but it's teed up to be a good one already.
How many screens are you gonna have open? Fox, CNN, the Leafs game, everything's going tonight.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that. I got to get the iPad down and figure some stuff out. A buddy might come over and play some pool. So hell, maybe I'll have a couple beers before the game and really have some hot takes.
Hey, that'd be amazing. So looking forward again to Zach Phillips tonight, the Leafs Nation After Dark. Make sure to check that out directly following the ending of the Leafs Bruins game. As well, get those super chats in at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. If you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing and new locations opening. You need to get more customers and keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech, helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca to see why Square is big in restaurants. So it's the Maple Leafs and the Bruins, second time this season. This one happening at Scotiabank Arena. The first meeting, if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, Boston 4, Toronto 3 in OT. Brad Marchand, the Austin Matthews giveaway. But a couple things to bring to the table for this one tonight. I didn't realize it. The Maple Leafs have lost 8 straight outings in the regular season with the Boston Bruins. Their last win against Boston in the regular season, November 6, 2022, Rosie. They're due.
Good Lord. I guess that's one way to look at it. But yeah, that makes sense. We seem to have had I can't think of one. So yeah, that does make sense, but I wouldn't have thought it at the top of my head. But they seem to get pumped up for the Bruins and get let down and have some work to do after every single regular season game. And they fare a little better in the playoffs, believe it or not. But a team that has had their number for over a decade now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. I cringe every time the Maple Leafs have to play the Boston Bruins, man. I think you referenced it yesterday. It's like a real, like, who's your daddy type team right now. It feels like every time they play Boston, it's just a tough night. You know, it's going to be a tough night. I think they got to get their grinding pants on tonight and find a way to get the job done, because you can't forget as well, like, this is the opener of a 4-game homestand. They're all divisional matchups too, right? Like, you can really create separation in the standings if you can take care of business in regulation against the likes of Boston, Detroit, Montreal, and the Ottawa Senators. But I think it's no secret the Leafs can hang with this team, but for some reason, when the going gets tough, they can't finish the job, man.
That's the thing. They don't just get curb stomped by these guys every single time. They hang there and it looks like they could win.
Mhm.
Sometimes they'll score the first goal or tie it up late. Like, whatever the situation is, they're right there and they just seem to always come up short. And I do question the mental strength of this team. When the going gets tough, they tend to just look, doe-eyed and just, and they're looking around and everyone's kind of like worried. And it's not a character that's indicative to being very mentally tough. And I've questioned the leadership at times, like, not that they're bad people or bad players, but like, are they the guy to be, no one's going to be Sidney Crosby, but is someone capable of being a Tkachuk and just being like, whatever the game calls for, I'm blazing a path right now and getting us there. And I'm going to lead the way and show everyone how it's done. And it's not necessarily with your play, it's like with your attitude and your actions and how you address different situations on the ice. And it just seems like when the going gets tough with these guys, historically kind of freeze and ultimately falter. And like you said, they're usually in the fight. They're a good enough team to be good. They just don't really have those ingredients yet, or they haven't found them. Or like you can't keep saying they haven't matured or had the experience. I mean, it's going on a long time now. I just sometimes question if they have the mental fortitude to just get through adversity. And it's at the point where you come up to the Boston Bruins and you're going to face adversity, and they fall short every single time, albeit they haven't won in 8 games since 2022 against the Boston Bruins in the regular season.
It always feels like Boston has an answer. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Brad Marchand just corrals the loose puck off Austin Matthews in OT, and gets the rebound and puts it in. It just seems like the big boys always seem to have an answer. We talked about this yesterday too. David Pastrnak was benched for the entire third period last night, or on Sunday, for the Boston Bruins. So I think you got to keep that in mind. Imagine that happened in Toronto, where one of the big boys was benched for an entire period. Man, there'd be a summit, dude.
Oh, someone gets chewed out after a dumb shift and has a bad turnover, or starts going south with it after gaining the red line, and he gets an earful, and it's national news for a week long. That's the nature of the business, and I've said since day one of this thing that makes it difficult to win in Toronto, man. Those things affect players, and you walk into the room after a loss, you're walking on eggshells. The media is just, you can see them behind the door just scrambling to get in, and they want to ask those big questions and make a big deal about it. And the same thing, it's difficult. It wears on players, and it's no secret that it's difficult to win in Toronto, a la 1967.
A couple notes before we get to our guest, Pierre McGuire. Again, Boston is playing really well. Again, coming off a weekend where they notched back-to-back shutout victories, which, again, is a bad omen for the Maple Leafs. The Leafs 35-19-2 without Austin Matthews. Anthony Stolarz, I think the right call, you can agree, starting in this one against the Bees. And it looks like it's going to be Domi, Tavares, Holmberg, Camp up the middle, Rosie.
Yeah, big night for Domi getting that chance, and he's going to try to make the most of it. He's been a little snake bitten this year, and sometimes you got to stay patient, wait for an opportunity. And here's a big one for Max Domi, so we'll be watching him for sure from the get go against the Boston Bruins, seeing if he can make something happen and get his season on track.
The other thing I'm looking at too is special teams. Obviously, Toronto's PK was really good over the weekend, but the power play, how does that factor in and not having Austin Matthews? Watch them go on a crazy run, right? The fact that Morgan Riley's going to be on PP1 replacing Matthews, but I'm very intrigued to see if they can get cooking a bit here, Rosie.
Yeah, I don't think this is a bad thing at all, and that's nothing against Austin Matthews whatsoever. But when you're spinning your wheels that bad and you're stuck in the mud and nothing's going right, and you're in as big of a slump as the Leafs power play is, sometimes it just takes something out of the blue to jog everything loose. And you're never going to take Austin Matthews off the power play, and he's not the problem with the power play. But sometimes you just get this weird thing. Austin Matthews goes down, day of a game, mix it up. All of a sudden he's not there. Give some other guy a shot. All of a sudden it's a different look. Something goes in, and away you go. You're off to the races. I've seen it before where, slumps come to an end in kind of funny ways. And honestly, at this point, any change in any direction, I think, is welcomed, just to try to get this thing on track.
I'm just curious to see what type of style, what type of brand the Leafs play in this game, where we just talked about it. Again, you're without your top player in Austin Matthews. I want them to hit them out of the building, Rosie. Would that not be refreshing if they came out the way they came out, say, against Tampa a couple weeks ago, where it's like they prove a point in the first shift? It's going to be a long night for you, David Pastrnak. It's going to be a long night for you, Brad Marchand and company.
Yeah, damn right. So that's how they should be playing. And I mean, the power play woes kind of overshadow the inconsistency of the group as a whole. But when they're playing that good style of hockey and that Berube style, and that, get it deep when you need to, limit the turnovers, go north south, forecheck, finish your hit, play heavy, they have success. And then they'll, do it in the first period, and then second period, just let's abandon ship on that. That's kind of, you got to kind of focus to do that stuff. Let's go zing and loop and shoot, and it blows up in their face. So consistency will be a big thing. But yeah, against the big bad Bruins, I think absolutely play a heavy style of hockey and throw the kitchen sink at these guys.
What type of game are you envisioning? Like, do you expect a high scoring game, or is it going to be, again, like a tight checking type affair? Because, again, we've seen a bit of both sides when it comes to matchups. And I think it's important to know, too, like the whole Austin Matthews thing, like people are bringing up the fact that, yeah, it's Boston, but you can't forget even in the playoffs last year, the Leafs won a couple games without Matthews in the lineup.
Yeah, I expect it to be kind of tighter checking. I think that it's going to be a little bit tighter checking when you're being coached by Craig Berube and they're trying to adopt that style. It's not going to be, a 6-5 game, and it shouldn't be. And we've had problems with this team trying to win games 6-5 every single night. It's not a recipe for success, especially in the playoffs. You got Stolarz playing like a maniac right now, and he looks fantastic. Austin Matthews is not in the lineup. The power play is abysmal. So I do not expect a high scoring game. But you just never know with these things. The Boston Bruins are over there as well, but I expect it to be a little bit tighter checking, getting it deep, doing that stuff. And people are kind of trying to knock Craig Berube to say it's taking away the creativity and it's a boring style of hockey. I don't think that's the case at all. These guys are dynamic and they have the ability to have fireworks out there, but I think they're learning these habits of doing the right things that matter, and they're the little things that they haven't been held accountable for in the past. And during that process of learning the system and whatnot, you might get those tighter games, and I think that's a good thing if that's the case.
Berube on Matthews, he's been fighting through it a bit, something that has been lingering. So there you have it.
Great. I don't like
Yeah.
it.
No,
I always wonder, like when you don't show up to a playoff series because you're injured, and then you pick up the season injured with the same thing. I'm not saying that is the case, but it happens, and he has had problems with the same wrist. You wonder, like, why didn't you take the off season to get that thing scoped or cleaned out or whatever whatever needs to happen? You have several months there, and now we got 8 months of hockey ahead of us, and he's still laboring. It's a frustrating thing, and I'm sure for nobody more than Austin Matthews himself.
Well, I'm a bit concerned about that situation moving forward. So again, no Austin Matthews in the lineup tonight against the Boston Bruins. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Don't forget that subscribe button, that like button at the Leafs Nation 401. As we bring in today's guest, Pierre McGuire. What's going on, Pierre? How are you?
Nick and Jay, great to visit with you. Everything's good, thank you. I'm a little bit more healthy than maybe Austin Matthews is, but I'm doing fine, thank you.
Yeah, tough news. Curious to get your reaction on that and sort of what you've seen in Austin Matthews' game. Has there been a telltale sign that something could be up?
Well, he's not shooting the puck as well, and I think Jane knows that's one of his calling cards. So that's one of the things that kind of stands out. I don't think he's been as good deep in his own zone as he usually has been. So maybe he's a little bit shy physically because of that injury. He's trying to protect something. But the truth of the matter is, the most frustrating thing if you're a Leaf fan right now, Nick and Jay, is 4 for 40 on the power play is no good. They brought in Mark Savard to make the power play better. They have more than enough ammunition to have an elite power play. That power play is at 10% right now. I do a thing, and I learned this from Scotty Bowman a long time ago. It's called a special teams quotient. You have the power play percentage and the penalty kill percentage. If you're an elite team in the league that's got a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup, you're at 105 or better. Right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs are at 94.3. Think about that for a second. That's not even close. I'll show you the top teams in the league. The Winnipeg Jets are at 120.1, and the New York Rangers are at 120.4. Okay? So people can talk about all this other stuff. I'm telling you right now, if your special teams equation isn't 105 or better, you're not even in the discussion as an elite team in the league.
Yeah, there's no question. It's a massive part of the game right now, and we watch day in and day out, and they come up short and they falter, and whether they can't get an entry or a setup or finish or get any kind of real chances going. What would you do if you're at the helm to try to break this thing loose? Is there real interior issues, or is it just a matter of just playing through this slump?
I think, Jay, one of the most important things in the NHL now is to have a power play where the puck goes through one person. It starts with one person. So if you go look at all those elite power plays in Washington when they had Ovechkin and Backstrom and Oshie and John Carlson and Tommy Wilson, they had the puck always go through Nicky Backstrom. I can tell you, with our elite power plays when I was coaching in Pittsburgh, when we had Lemieux and Mullen and Francis and Yager and Stevens and Murphy, like a murderer's row of players, everything started and went through Larry Murphy's stick. Everything did. Even though we had Lemieux, we had all. It starts with one person settling. I don't know who that guy is in Toronto right now. I don't know who it is, and whether it's Nylander, whether it's Johnny T, whether it's Austin, whether it's Mitchell, I don't know who it is, but they got to find who that person is pretty quick, I think.
Pierre, it's funny you say that because I had a former Washington Capital who won the cup with them a couple of years ago tell me the exact same thing via text like 2 days ago. Run it like Washington's power play. That's exactly what he said with Backstrom and the Ovechkin shot.
Yeah, no, and look, I'm not trying to pick on Mark Savard. He's a friend of mine and somebody I really respect a lot. But, I've been in the league 35 years, coaching and broadcasting and being around it. And I know the top power plays and I know the weaker power plays. And the elite power plays always have one guy you can defer to, one guy that takes charge and calms everybody. I don't think they have that guy yet in Toronto, even though there's a plethora of guys, Nick and Jay, that could be like that. There's a ton of guys that could be like that.
And that could be the problem. Too many sergeants, not enough soldiers, And,
True.
if you look at the team as a whole, aside from that power play, which is a massive part of their woes, they seem to be playing inconsistent hockey. When it's good, it's good. And when it's not, it's not. Do you attribute that just to the growing pains of getting used to Craig Berube and maybe a different type of system and accountability level?
Yeah, you've been through that, so I'd say you're onto something there. But here's something that would be, if I had the coaching staff, I'd be looking at it, and I'd say, we've played St. Louis twice. We've been outscored by St. Louis 9-3 in 2 games. We don't have to play against them anymore. What's the one thing in common? The head coach used to be the head coach in St. Louis. He's now the head coach in Toronto. Do they know something about Toronto? Do they know something about the coach? Because here's the one thing. I think they did know something. I think they understood. I watched both those games. And, whether it was a 5-1 game or the 4-2 game, they're familiar with the system. Sometimes you got to deviate. The one thing I would tell you about watching Toronto, and Jay, you were good at this. You were somebody that the coach could rely on late in the game. At the end of a period, you weren't going to let them down defensively. You see the end zone coverage just like I see it. They're fundamental flaws in their end zone coverage right now. And I think it's players not used to playing the way, Coach Berube wants them to play.
There's a lot of questions, certainly, with this team. I do subscribe to the whole growing pains conversation. I think it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a process, certainly, with this team under Craig Berube. But there's a couple guys, Pierre, I feel don't really fit. Timothy Liljegren was one of them. He's now with San Jose. Another is Nick Robertson. What's your read on Robertson long-term with the Leafs?
I don't know if there's a read for him right now, Nick, to be honest with you. Now, I watch him play just like everybody else. He scoots around real fast. It looks like he's explosive with the puck on his stick. Looks like he make the players around him better. But the numbers don't say that. The eye test says it is. The numbers say it's not. I don't know what the long term is for him. I know that when Craig had success in St. Louis, smaller guys didn't play a lot. It was ground and pound. It was, mean, get it deep, dominate board play, dominate slot play. Don't let them get to the net. Here's the one thing that stood out about Berube's teams in St. Louis that won, and I did every single game they played the year they won the Cup in 2019. It was almost impossible to get to the net for a second chance opportunity if you were the other team. It was almost impossible. You can't say that about this Leafs team. Whether it's the forwards helping the defense, whether it's defense not being big enough, you can't say that about this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And we talked about it the last time I was on with you guys. Stolarz was a huge steal for them. Huge steal. That was a massive move by the pro scouting staff and Brad Treliving. If they don't have Stolarz, I don't know what their record would be right now.
Yeah, we were talking about that last game. It would be uglier. That is for sure. On a positive side, the history of this team and their shortfallings has been the look and the depth of their defense. They've addressed that, and it's working out fantastically so far. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Tanev looking great. What's your take on Yanni Hakanpää? If he gets healthy, which is supposed to be soon, can he make a big difference and really make this defensive core a force in the league?
If they play a matchup game, I think he can, especially in the penalty kill, where I think he'll be a force. He'll take some of those minutes away from Tanev, maybe. Tanev's been great, by the way, Jay. You're spot on with that. And Ekman-Larsson's playing as well or better than he's ever played in the league. He really is. He's doing – and you know what he's showing, Jay, and I know you'd appreciate this. There's a little bite in his game now that I don't think was really apparent in Arizona, was definitely not apparent in Vancouver. And I think you might have learned some of that being down in Florida on a winning team. So I think you're spot on with that. I do. But Hawk and Puck can't help. I think it's a great point. It's a valuable point.
I like that you brought that up with OEL. Is that just Paul Maurice doing his thing again?
Paul doesn't get enough. I know he's a Stanley Cup winner now. Doesn't get enough credit, Nick. And he's been such a good coach for a long time. One of the things that I think makes Paul a really good coach, he's changed with the times. When he was a younger coach, he probably thought he had to kick some butt. I know I went through that too. You kind of want to show people you're large and in charge. And I think as he's grown up as a coach, he's realized how to communicate and really develop relationships with his players that are so important if you're going to coach in the league today.
Pierre, what do you see in the future for this team based on what you've seen so far this season?
See, I'm bullish on Toronto. I think Toronto's got a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup. I do think there's growing pains that are going to have to happen, though, Jay. And I think they've got some ammunition now in terms of depth of young prospects and players, whether it's Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, Marshall Rafai down in the American Hockey League, Nick Abruzzese in the American Hockey League, Alex Nylander. I mean, I can go down the line. They got prospects now. I think they're going to wait and see what they're going to do just before the trade deadline. I don't think the roster you see now, Jay, I don't think that's going to be the roster that's going to go into the playoffs for Toronto. But I do think there's a team that's legitimately capable of being a Stanley Cup contender. And it's the first time I've said that in a long time.
Yeah, that's tough. We have more and more guests actually coming on this podcast saying that. And I think it's more so the brand, the style they're playing that is more conducive to finding success, I think, in our opinions, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Your crystal ball, obviously, a couple months away, leading down the path. Like, what do you think are some positions of needs for this team leading up to the deadline in a couple months?
Supplemental offense, what are they going to do with Bobby McMahon? I think he's a really key component of playoff style series because he can bump and grind big. He skates. He can play defense. I've known his game for a long time, even before he got to Colgate University. So he's one of those guys. If they think he can be that guy, then I don't think they address that. But if they don't, I think that maybe they go out and address supplemental offense. I still think they can be a little harder down the middle. I really do, and I think that's something they're going to look at. And one more defenseman that would be a top-end puck mover. I think that would be great. If they could get a top-end puck mover on the back end, that'd be really good.
Well, Pierre, we'll see what happens starting tonight against the Boston Bruins. Really appreciate your time. We'll talk soon, buddy. Thank you so much.
Oh, Nick, my pleasure. Jay, great visiting me. Take care, gentlemen.
Same to you, Pierre. Thanks, man.
Yep.
One of our absolute favorites here on the podcast, Pierre McGuire, long-term NHL broadcaster, former exec coach, done everything in this league, and always great to get his sort of perspective and his breakdown. And you mentioned it, just knows a thing or two about every player, including Bob McMahon.
Yeah, seriously, man. It's impressive what his Rolodex and encyclopedia of a brain is in the hockey world, going back as far as you really want. So good to have him on. A lot of interesting takes. Some are obvious ones and other ones that make you think a little bit too. And yeah, he knows this team fairly intimately. He knows lots of teams. Like he mentioned the Stanley Cup winning formula of the St. Louis Blues when he was watching them deeply. And I think that's, again, where the wheels are trying to turn to get to that point with this team. And it is the Toronto Maple Leafs, so you're going to get that. But the fact that people haven't given this team enough time to really develop into what it is, people are starting to knock them already, which I just think is wrong. And we've knocked them hard, and we're hard on them, and we hold them accountable, I think, on this show. But again, you go back to the summer, it's like, yeah, look at all these changes. Man, Craig Berube is going to make them play a certain way. Don't be surprised if it doesn't happen right off the bat. There's going to be some growing pains, and there's going to be some things they need to learn and develop into habits. And, he mentioned, clearing out the front of the net, not getting those second chances sometimes. And it happens less and less and less this season. But those scrambly out of position breakdowns that lead to a scoring chance, sometimes it'll be a second and a third whack. I think the first goal was really like that last game with Stoli. It kind of went in off Tavares, but guys will come out of into the frame, sliding on their bellies, and Morgan Rielly slides right into the bloody corner for some reason. Oh my God. And it becomes that scrambly thing. There's not as many chances against, I would argue, and I think it looks pretty solid defensively, but there's another thing they can start to work on, is those second chances and getting back to being collected positionally after you give up a chance. And like you said, St. Louis Blues were the best at that the year they won the Stanley Cup.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can do so. Many thanks to Tammy for the super chat. Nikki boy, I must ask you a question, but I'll shave it for later. Thank you for that, Tammy. I appreciate that. A big topic of focus in the chat the last couple of days has been my duster. It's coming in hot, buddy.
Are you
Coming in
gonna,
hot.
if I had, because it is not as dark as the others, would you just ferment it and just make it just pop, just black?
No, we're at the beginning stages of this puppy, man. Just let it fester, let it grow. It's going to take a bit of time, but it does come in a bit lighter. For those of you who don't know sort of the origin of the Golden Muzzy, it was way back when we had to create Twitter accounts in new media class, I think in 2011. And at the time I used to hack darts and my Muzzy would come in a bit yellow. So I was like, why not the Golden Muzzy? Not thinking it would stick for the next 15 years. Yet here we are. So that's my brand.
How would I didn't even know that?
Yeah. I get it asked a lot. If I guest on shows, that's like the number one thing. What's with the Golden Muzzy? But that's, I wish it was a better story than that.
Was the dart ripping what made it yellow, or has it just got a little red in there?
No, I think it was a dart ripping and it was just me being younger. Like now it comes in, like you've seen my beard before. When I get it going, it gets cooking a bit.
Oh, for sure. It's heavy and it's black. It's just that Muzz is a little bit light. Well, let's give it a couple of weeks here, but I might be pushing the Just for Men just to make an absolute
I've done the Just for Men before, dude. It looks hilarious, right? It's like so thick. It's like jet black out there.
Maybe I should have done it, man. Just this catfish. I gotta go in public, man. I should have done it. Just for
whiskers?
men, my catfish whiskers. It would have been so gross.
I think you'd look good with the pencil Muzzy. You know the one, just like a little pencil stash.
A little Frenchie, like a real Frenchie stash. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
so, buddy.
It's funny you bring that up, man, because I remember one podcast specifically I went on like 7 years ago, and it was the randomest thing you'll ever hear in your life. Remember Banya from like Seinfeld
Banya, no.
or Banya? Does anybody in the chat love Seinfeld? Pipe up if you did. But anyways, there was this funny character Banya in Seinfeld, and I don't know what happened. I guess this guy used to listen to me on NHL Network Radio. Long story short, I ended up on this guy's podcast.
Oh, really?
And he asked me about the Golden Muzzy, and I guess he did some Laugh Factory stuff in California, and he was a comedian, dude. The guy just ripped on me for like 20 minutes. He's like, that's all the story was. Like, he just went to town on me. I was like, did you bring me on to roast me or talk about hockey? It was hilarious. It was random, though.
I think a lot of people in the chat are going to start to like this guy.
Yeah, exactly. We should bring him on the show. Banya is the guy, producer Vic, solidifying that. But I wasn't a big Seinfeld guy, so I don't even recall what his role in that show was. But I think it was a small little role. But with Seinfeld, every character was great. Were you a big Seinfeld guy back in the day?
I wasn't really. My dad watched it and laughed, but I know some of the stuff. I think it's great. Obviously, a legendary show, but I'm not the guy that quotes it all day long and knows every single episode by any stretch. No.
So Leaf Nation 67 steals Jerry's jokes. Gold, Jerry, gold. You know that whole quote? It's gold, Jerry, gold. That's I don't know. I don't know how much you watch, but Jerry Seinfeld hated him in the show. I remembered him briefly. I wasn't a big Seinfeld guy, but when he reached out, I was like, I got to do this. This is Banya from Seinfeld. Although I wasn't admittedly the biggest Seinfeld fan, but just the randomest things have happened. That one sticks out because of the mustache. He just ripped me to shreds about my handle.
Well, I just looked him up and I recognize the guy, and I can picture his voice. He kind of looks like Phil Hartman, actually. But no, I recognize him. That's funny. Let's get him on the show, baby.
Dude, I haven't talked to him. Like, I don't know. It was the randomest thing. I don't even remember how this guy reached out, but I just remember being on his podcast. And quite frankly, I didn't even know who he was until I got there. And then like the whole setup was like, it's Banya from Seinfeld. And I'm like, oh, it makes sense. But I just recall the guy just ripping me to shreds. So it feels like a everyday thing in this chat here in the Leafs Nation. So perfect.
Yeah, just own it, man. Just own it.
I should own it. Owning this mustache, and I will mention as well, I'm a little disappointed. I'm heading down to the game tonight. I was looking forward to seeing Matthews, but I always like to go out against the Boston Bruins. Always a spirited affair.
I hope it is, man. It's going to be tough with this Peeper and Matthews out.
I know.
I just like to
Pasternak's pissed off.
Yeah. How are they heavily favored to win this goddamn game? Haven't beat them in 8 outings since 2022 in the regular season. They're red hot, coming off 2 shutouts, aren't they? Pasternak just got pee-pee whacked. Their entire offense is abysmal, and they just lost their Rocket Richard winning player like and they're favored like minus 135. Well, I know we're not in the betting segment yet, but how on earth does that make sense? They are so behind the 8 ball right now, but it would be leafy as hell as they come out and shit pump Boston tonight.
The odds makers know that the Maple Leafs, Rosie, here's my answer. They're 35-19-2 all time without Austin Matthews in the lineup. We try to make sense of that for the last 40 minutes. We really can't. But would I be shocked? I think you tweeted this on Sunday. I have no clue which team's going to show up. I still feel that way through 13 games, man. They can come out, piping hot like that game against Tampa, or they can come out like that game against Columbus. Tune in to find out, Rosie.
Those were back-to-backs, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, consistency is going to be the theme for this team. It has been for a long time, and I feel like that's very apparent this season. But when the good is good, they're putting together. They're not scoring 7 goals, and Willie goes between his legs. Like, it's not this ridiculous thing that you're just gonna say, well, that's just not realistic hockey. When their good is good, it's as realistic and as it's what you've asked out of this group for years. It's like they're playing the right way. They're playing north. They're playing heavy. The bloody buzzwords that Chief uses, he uses them for a reason because that's what it looks like, right? And when they've been good this year, it hasn't been because they're putting on a freaking circus and it happens to be, not ending up in the back of their net. It's because they're playing the right way. And that's what gives me hope. And that's why I think Pierre McGuire says he's bullish on the Toronto Maple Leafs, is because when they're playing well, they're playing a style of hockey that they haven't played before. And it's very conducive to playoff success. So as much as I don't know who's going to show up tonight, as long as throughout November and December and January and February, if you use those 4 months to just create that identity and get that consistency and be able to be comfortable playing that style of hockey night after night, I think they're in a really good place. So all I'm looking for is just seeing as much of 60 minutes of that good hockey as I possibly can. And I think it'll be a win.
I'll make sure to FaceTime you from Scotiabank Arena tonight. I like you mentioned earlier on, I'm intrigued by the top 6, the Tavares line. Can they get cooking again? But Max Domi, every time this guy elevates, man, he seems to rise up to the occasion. If you recall in that series with Boston, right, it was slim pickings, no Nylander, no Matthews, and somebody who certainly elevated was like a Max Domi, right? He played his best hockey at the end of last season. And I think Max Domi's a guy specifically I'm looking at, man. I don't want to say he's been inconsistent because I do think he's reliable. They need him to shoot the puck more, first and foremost. Everybody knows that, including Matt Sundin. When we talked to Matt a couple weeks ago, he documented that and said that. But I think from Domi's perspective, they just need a bit more offense out of him this time around.
Yeah, I'd agree. And he's a guy that could adopt the Craig Berube system to a T. I think it fits him. And then he's also got the ability to finish and be offensive and play with the big boys if need be. And here he is getting a shot on the top line with the big boys, right? And I think he clicks with Austin Matthews oftentimes. So obviously that's not going to be a factor tonight, but we got him and signed him and got him here to play a certain way. And he has fulfilled that in a lot of ways. Like, the sky's the limit for Max, but I just think that this season is for you, Max. Like, this guy came in who's going to love your style of play, your work ethic, your ability to kind of keep it simple, but then you're also not some plug that is just going to go out there and spin his wheels. You can play with the big guys, you can finish, and he hasn't had the start he's exactly wanted, and I'm hoping tonight is kind of a catalyst to get him over the hump, and away he goes. But I just see big things for Max Domi. At least I expect big things, and he's capable of big things, not just because of the player who he is, but because of this system that they're trying to bring in with Craig Berube. I think it's tailor-made for a Max Domi to have a ton of success under.
Luke Fox via X, Craig Berube says Matthews' injury is not related to all the wrist issues in the past, so I call that a positive.
No kidding. You just tweak your shoulder up a little bit and it's clicking, and all of a sudden your trap's really tight and it's pulling on your neck. Hey, shut it down tonight, dude. No problem. Take today off. Maybe, who knows? But that's a good thing that it's not a lingering deep issue that probably should have had surgery on it 2 years ago. And oh my God, that's problems written all over it, especially when you're in the beginning of November. So I think that's a huge positive to hear that it's not related to the other stuff. And it's actually nice that they release that stuff once in a while, because otherwise people's minds run crazy, and these shows like ours run crazy with it and have all these theories on what's going on. And then all of a sudden that's in the psyche of the whole Leafs nation. It's just not a good thing. Be upfront and honest. This is what's going on. Good. Thanks. Duly noted. Now we know. I like that.
Especially in this market, right? We run with everything, as we are well aware by now. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase. Today, I'm going to keep it simple. Give me a William Nylander anytime goal. It just seems like this guy always rises up to the occasion, man, against Boston.
You stealer of my bet.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
We don't go over these bets. So, hey, if you're listening, sounds like that's a double down on that one, because we don't talk about the bets before we go on. Usually I forget to make a bet and I'm doing it on the fly. But I looked at it this morning and go, are you kidding me? They are heavily favored against the Boston Bruins when I got 5 fingers of reasons why they could get shelled tonight. They're on a skid. Austin's out. They never beat Boston. Pasternak is going to be on fire. They 2-game shutout they're coming off of. They haven't beat him since 2022. Are you kidding me? They're heavily favored at minus 135. So I'm staying away from all that.
Yeah.
But I look at Willie with 9 goals. I think the league leading is 10 or 11. He's right there. And with Austin out, I think that kid's going to be riding the subway to the game tonight going, I need to be on fire tonight. And I could, I'll double down on that anytime goal for William Nylander.
I need to shoot a new commercial to make some more money too. I think he's thinking about that as well. I like a Max Domi anytime assist, so I'm going to play that. And Matthew Nice shot prop.
Matthew Nice shot prop. And
somebody's got to shoot the puck on the top line. It's not going to be Domi. It's not going to be Marner, right? So
there you go. They don't like shooting. Yeah, a Max Domi anytime appetizer as well. Let's jump on that. All right. I usually stay away from the player props, but tonight I'm going down that road.
We're diving in because, dude, I echo your sentiments. I can't sit here with a straight face with this ugly ass mustache and tell you the Leafs are winning tonight. I have no clue what's going to happen. I can read the numbers off to you. I could say Austin Matthews is not playing, and history suggests this team will rise up to the occasion, but I just can't get to that level with that inflamed price. So there's other ways around it, right?
Agreed. And I think the stuff we came up with is pretty legit. So let's go with some players on the top couple lines today.
Producer Vic writes in, past anytime goal. That's, admittedly something I will be looking at. He is going to be kind of fired up, you think? And it happened last time around. If you recall, Brad Marchand, after being called out by his coach, what happened? Scores the OT winner. So would you be shocked if David Pasternak got on the board today? Probably not.
No, I'm rarely shocked when David Pasternak gets
on
the board.
He's so sick. Yeah. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Many thanks to Pierre McGuire for dropping by today's show. Another big guest coming up tomorrow. Your former GM in Toronto, Brian Burke's stopping by.
Berkey, baby. Yeah, they're getting back to trying to play the style that Berkey is a fan of. So we'll pick his brain about the woes and the positives. This team's all over the place. So we'll get his take on it, see what he thinks about that power play, about Craig Berube, about this new system, and so far the month of October's season success or lack thereof.
And don't forget, too, you won't have to wait until tomorrow to get Rosie's takes on this game against the Boston Bruins. He's going to be a guest on tonight's edition of the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips, so make sure you check that out. Thank you to everyone in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. Many thanks to producer Vic, and we'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.